These are the ingredients that I use. This lasagna is almost all store brand ingredients. This is not a 100% made from scratch lasagna. However, I would put this lasagna up against any homemade lasagna out there. These are the ingredients. We're using oven ready noodles, so you don't have to boil them. This is going to be the sauce. Add a little bit of that if I need to. Pound of Italian sausage, pound of ground beef, Parmesan, whole milk ricotta. These are 15-ounce containers, and then a 24-ounce container of large curd cottage cheese, 4 cups of mozzarella, and then 4 cups of the Italian blend. And that's it. And you're going to need a big baking dish because this lasagna is huge. Alright, let's get started. We're just going to mix up the sausage and the ground beef in a large pan, non-stick frying pan on high heat. And we just want to brown this and make sure that it's good and, you know, broken up and mixed up good, so you don't have big hunks of sausage and big hunks of beef. You want it nice and crumbly, and well, unless you want it chunky. I guess you could do it if you wanted to. I like mine smaller crumbles so that it distributes better. So remember, this is 1 pound of ground beef and 1 pound of Italian sausage. And we're just going to brown that up. And we'll be back in just a minute after that's done. Stand by. One thing that I did forget to mention, we are going to add just a little bit, and I mean literally just a little bit of just a few fennel seeds in with the meat. That kind of helps to have the beef taste a little bit more Italian. Now you can use 2 pounds of Italian sausage in this instead of the 1 pound of sausage, 1 pound of beef. However, I like to use 1 of each because it cuts down on the salt content. The Italian sausage does tend to be a little salty, and I don't like things overly salty, so I like to use just regular ground beef, half and half, with Italian sausage. And because of all the spices that are in the sausage, there's no reason to add any additional seasonings to this meat other than the fennel seed if you want to. And then once you put your sauce in this, all the seasonings from the sauce are going to blend into the meat, which is going to, season it then. So you don't have to add anything if you don't want, or you can add whatever you'd like. All right, let's finish doing this, and then we'll work on our cheese mixture after we finish our meat sauce. Okay, now that our meat is browned, what I've done here is I've got a strainer, and I've got the water going down the garbage disposal, just absolutely screaming hot. And so I'm going to put all this in there, and yes, I know that my water is going on the beef and the meat. I'm doing that on purpose because rinsing out my pan, hot water, and putting that water on the meat, and that is getting rid of any unnecessary fat and grease that's on that meat. And so I'm just gonna let that drain, and let your hot water run down the disposal there for a minute. And after you get done, if you want to drop a garbage disposal cleaner thing down there and clean it out. But a lot of people do think that this is a bad thing to do. But you know, I've done it for a long time and I've never had the sink stop up. So I'm not worried about it. So, alright, we're going to finish draining this and then we're going to return this to the pan and finish up our meat sauce. Okay, our meat is drained and I've got my heat under my pan set at simmer. And now we're just going to add 2 cans of, or jars, or whatever you want to use for your sauce. I'm using Hunt's Chunky Vegetable, and these are 24-ounce cans each. And just get this good and mixed up. And then after you get this mixed up, you can let this just simmer for about, oh, I don't know, on low heat, just simmer for maybe 10 minutes or so. You know, just to basically take the chill off that sauce, you know, so your meat's got some of the sauce soaked into it and the sauce is warm. Alright, there's that. Now I'm just going to let that simmer for, like I said, for about 10 minutes, and then after that we're going to work on our cheese mixture. Okay, now our meat sauce is completed, and so now we're going to put together our cheese mixture, and we're going to add 30 ounces of whole milk ricotta cheese. I do not cook with low-fat or non-fat dairy products, except for I do use 2% milk sometimes, but more than anything I'll use regular full fat in the dairy products. Okay, I was just looking here. Okay, so it's 30 ounces of ricotta, and this is 24 ounces of large curd cottage cheese. And the more of my cooking videos you see, the more you will realize how much I love cooking with cheese. We're going to add 3 beaten eggs. And I'm going to add about, I'm going to say about about a half a can of Parmesan cheese. That was almost a half. I'm going to add just a little bit more from this one. So that was about a half a can's worth of Parmesan cheese, and this is an 8-ounce can, so I'm used about half of it. Okay. Now I'm going to add 2 cups of the Italian blend cheese, which is just one whole package, and that's an 8-ounce package. And this blend has mozzarella, provolone, Parmesan, Romano, Fontina, and Asiago. And I'm going to add just a dash of some oregano. Not much, because the sauce already has a lot of that in it. And just a sprinkle of basil in there. Oops. Okay, so we just need to blend all of this, and once that's blended, then we will move on. Oh, you know what? Actually, I tell you what, I think I will add just a little bit of black pepper into that mixture also. I'm out of peppercorn, so today I'm having to use the old canned pepper, which I'm not crazy about, but okay, we're gonna blend this up and it's almost time to start assembling this thing. Stand by. Okay, so there is our cheese mixture. That's what it looks like when it's completed. And then we have our meat mixture here. Now it is time to assemble. Okay, before you start assembling this, go ahead and preheat your oven to 425. My oven runs just a little bit cool, so I usually set mine to 5 degrees over. So I'm setting my oven to 430 and let that be preheating while you assemble this thing. Now, here's where this can of regular old tomato sauce comes in. I actually added a little bit of this into the meat mixture because the meat mixture was a little dry. And the remainder I am going to just pour into the bottom of this pan. And I use these aluminum pans because you don't have to worry about scrubbing a pan clean after you make this thing, because all the cheese and everything, it just becomes a huge mess. So use one of these if you can. It just makes life a lot easier. So I just put that in the bottom, and what that does is just, it's not a whole lot for flavor. It's basically your first layer, because you're going to lay your first layer of noodles on top of this, and it's giving it something, you know, to create moisture that's going to come up. So okay, we are using oven ready lasagna noodles. And you're just going to now, when you run into this issue, you can just kind of, when the last noodle won't fit in there right, just kind of scoot them together and get it in there. Okay, now after your first layer of noodles, then you're going to use approximately half of your cheese mixture, give or take. I don't really measure much of anything. I just kind of eyeball it, and this doesn't have to be perfect, you know, just kind of distribute it the best you can. Now you get a ladle for your meat mixture, and just do the same thing right on top. So the order of the layers is noodles, cheese mixture, sauce, or meat sauce. By the way, this is only my second cooking video, so hopefully these will get better as time goes on, once I get the hang of talking and cooking and videoing all at the same time. So if you like my videos, feel free to comment, and I certainly hope that you like to try to make some of these recipes. I try to do things as simple as possible. Okay, now we're going to do the next layer of noodles, and this layer of noodles I'm going to do the other direction. And yes, by the way, I did wash my hands before I started doing this. And it's also okay too for these noodles to sort of overlap. You know, they don't have to, you know, get like that. You see what I'm saying? You can have them overlap just as long as all the area is covered. Now, that right there, if you have an extra noodle left, what I like to do is actually just break the thing up and stick it down in, you know, some of the little crevices to sort of fill it in. Not exactly gourmet restaurant style, but hey, we're cooking. Now, that is a whole box. What I just used here, this is a whole box. That was a 12-ounce box of oven-ready lasagna pasta. And what I actually do, though, is every time I make lasagna, I always make sure I have a partial box left over, because I'm going to do another layer. So I'm going to be using some of the noodles out of this box from the last time I made lasagna. Okay, now we're going to do this again. And this time around we're going to go ahead and use the rest of the cheese mixture. The final layer is just a hair different. So go ahead and use every little tiny bit of that cheese mixture you have left in your big mixing bowl here. Just make sure you get all your noodles covered as best as you can. Sometimes with those crumbles in there, distributing this cheese can be kind of a hassle because the crumbles like to move with the cheese. Okay, now this time don't use all of your meat mixture. Whatever you have left, use about half of what you have left. If you find that you're running out of meat sauce, or if you need more moisture, you can add some water to this, because this thing is just going to soak up the moisture. So in fact, that is exactly what I'm going to need to do. So I'm going to take what meat sauce I have left, which is just about that much, and I'm going to add some hot water to it so that I can get a little bit more out of it. Now, you might think that that's going to take away from the flavor. It really will not. I've done this many times before, and it works just fine. Stand by. Okay, so you can see what I did here. I added some water, and I actually had a little bit more tomato sauce in the cabinet, so I added that. So you've got this, and this is going to work perfect for our final layer. So let's continue to finish the assembly process. And this is the final layer. And as you put these noodles down, kind of press them down, because this thing is starting to get pretty tall. So sort of press them down into the sauce, because we're getting ready to add a bunch of cheese to this. So this one here, I'm gonna break this up so that I can fill in that spot and that spot, a little there, and a little down in here. Just a little lasagna cliff we have going on down here. Okay. Once this cooks and you get all the cheese on there, you and whoever is eating this will never ever know that you've got crumbled up noodles in here, because everybody's going to freak out because of how huge and how cheesy and how awesome this lasagna is. So there's no reason to worry about the way that this looks before you get it finished. Okay, take this final bit of the meat mixture. And yes, this is quite thin, but as I said, that is not a bad thing, because these noodles and everything are just going to suck up the moisture, because the last thing you want is a too dry lasagna. And that's a very common thing to happen when you first try to make lasagna, is it can either turn out too dry or too runny, and this is kind of a happy medium. I just strained out the rest of that that juice just so I could get the last bit of the meat that was in there. Okay, now we're ready to add the cheese to this thing. And we're putting 4 cups of mozzarella. Now, this is the last package of the Italian blend. This is 2 cups. Okay, once it's all assembled, I'm just going to take just a pinch of just an Italian blend seasoning and just sprinkle the top with a little Italian seasoning. Not a ridiculous amount, just a little dusting all over the top. It gives the top of it a little color. Alright, there is the assembled lasagna. Now, the next thing that we have to do is to cover it in foil. And you think, okay, well, that's no big deal, just put some foil on it. Well, it's not that easy, because when you're dealing with a lasagna that is taller than the pan that is in, if you do that, then all your cheese is going to stick to the aluminum foil instead of staying put on the lasagna. Okay, check this out. What I have here is a wood shish kebab skewer, and the pointy end is we're going to use that. So see how high your pan is, and then come up just a couple inches, inch and a half, something like that. And then once you know that you're clear of the cheese, break that skewer so you've got this. Now tear off some aluminum foil and wad it up into not a real tight ball, but sort of a loose ball, kind of like a little bit, maybe the size of a ping pong ball. And then take this and just, not the sharp end, but the dull end, jab it in there so that you have this. And then what you're going to do with this, and here's the reason why you want the sharp end, because you're going to take this right down the middle of your lasagna. Now if you're using an aluminum pan, don't stab too hard, because you'll stab the bottom of the pan. But you just want it to be, just to stay put like that. Now, get your foil, and you're going to just sort of tent it like that. And you want it to be tight on the sides, but don't try to pull it tight across this, because then your foil will just rip. And, try to keep your foil up so that none of the foil is touching your cheese. You do not want that to happen, because it will rip off all of the cheese when you try to take the foil off, and you don't want that to happen. That ruins the whole thing. You really want to foil the crap out of this thing because you don't want any of that moisture getting out. You want that thing sealed, but at the same time, don't touch the cheese. I can't say that enough. Okay, we got this thing wrapped up, and it looks like it's getting ready to be sent out into deep space. Alright, there you go. So, just make sure you've got a good curve, so this is not touching the cheese. Alright, we are going to put that in the oven, 425 degrees. After that cooks for about an hour and 10 minutes, we're going to take the foil off and look at it. And you want the cheese to be nice and brown. If it looks like the lasagna is done but the cheese isn't brown, put it under the broiler for just a minute, literally a minute, because you don't want your cheese to just turn black. So stand by, and in about an hour from now, we'll take a look at it and see what it looks like. Cook for about an hour and 15 minutes, and then once it comes out of the oven, you want to let this thing sit for about 20 minutes before you try to cut into it, so it can solidify a little bit. And while I'm letting this rest, I will be making my garlic cheese toast and then getting ready to feed some happy people. Thanks for watching. See ya.